Hello.
Hey, Justin, you're here.
I'm here. I thought I turned in my homework earlier and I just turned it in. So,
Okay, good, good. I'm glad you did, and that you're able to join us. Great. Okay, let me just take a moment to get set up here.
all right, I'll be right back.
Yeah, fine. Hi, Karen. Glad you could join us. Hello, Jewel. Let's just give some of your classmates a few minutes to get into here, and we can go through the assignment, which is my plan for the day. Let's see. Hello, Brazil.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, we'll give it another minute or so until it officially turns 3:30 p.m. my time, 1:30 yours. And as soon as it does, we can get started. I'll probably publish this answer guide as well, although I didn't complete the sections that were the short answers. Instead, I'm going to call on some of you that I really enjoyed, or I thought you did well with your particular answer on a given short answer question. Um, Several of you are not here yet, so just want to. Oh, good. Fabian's joined us. Good. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, doing good. Had a
Good,
good
good,
break.
good. Okay, let's begin. I want to get through this and then get on to some other things I got to do for the day. But yeah, I wanted to go through the assignment. I thought if we went through each individual question, and I was just mentioning to your classmates, Fabian, just a moment ago, that on the short answer questions, I didn't really answer those on my answer guide. Instead, I'm gonna see when I page down, those are all blank on my answer guide sheet. I'm gonna call on some of you to explain what you wrote and why you did, and particularly if I liked one of your answers, I thought it was pretty good. I will ask you to explain a little bit about the answer that you provided. But everybody did very well. I don't think anyone had more than four or five of the questions wrong. So I mean, you're talking about a pretty high percentage. So I'm glad to see that everyone's doing so well. I haven't graded yours yet, Justin. we'll see how you did in a little while after I'm done.
Well, I got it turned in, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, you never want to zero on any homework assignment. Anyway, let's go through these. Number one, the question is: at this time, bank loans are the most commonly used and important source of external financing for businesses. Well, that's true, and I think that information comes right off of a chart or a graph um, in one of the chapters. It's probably chapter 8, but I'm not positive. But yeah, I mean, everybody agree that makes some sense. That any questions on that? Okay, let's move on. I thought it was fairly obvious. Number two, the system of private production and sale of information completely solves the adverse selection problems in securities markets. Well, anytime you see a word like completely, it kind of tips people off that can't be the case, right? Um, Private production and sale of information can help with solving the adverse selection problems, but it never completely solves it. And there's also other means that are used to help solve the issues of adverse selection. So I think that's fairly obvious as well. That answer is false. Number three, two important tools used to help solve adverse selection and moral hazard problems in credit markets are creative financing and lenient covenant restrictions. Well, creative financing, I could see that being a tool, but lenient covenant restrictions, I don't think is going to help or be used as a tool to solve adverse selection or moral hazard problems. Everyone pretty much follow along with my thought there that it's especially the lenient covenant positions, which are restrictions rather, which throws that one out the window. So that's false. Number four, governments in developing countries often use their financial systems to direct credit to themselves or to favored sectors of the economy. If I remember correctly, that's right out of the text. And I think just about everybody got that one correct. So I don't think I'm going to spend any more time on it. But yeah, I mean, governments in countries that haven't fully developed their economic or their administrative structure will often um, direct credit to themselves or to favored sectors of the economy um, to best facilitate growth. Let's see. Number five, financial institutions realize that economies of scope in the services they provide, that is, they can raise the cost of informational products for each service by applying one informational resource to many different services, that this will increase their profitability in the long run. That is a question that I changed the wording on from a direct statement in the text that I changed it so that it would read incorrect. So if you do a search within your text on economies of scope or the cost of information production, I'm sure you'll be able to find that statement in the text and see how I changed it to read as a false statement. I think the last statement was the last sentence was what I changed. If I remember correctly, I did put this together a few weeks ago, so I can't remember exactly what I did, but you should be able to look that one up. Does that seem to make sense? Everybody good? Okay, we can carry on here. Substantial reduction in the quality of information in financial markets will increase asymmetric information problems and may prevent financial markets from channeling funds into the most productive investment opportunities. Definitely true. That's another statement right out of the text. Everyone agree that that seems to be logical sense? That makes sense to everybody? Everybody good? Okay. Moving on, when financial frictions increase, it is usually easier for lenders to ascertain the credit worthiness of potential borrowers. Well, that's definitely not the case. I mean, when financial frictions increase, it becomes more difficult to determine the credit worthiness of potential borrowers. So that's probably another statement that I took right out of the text and just changed it around so that it read false. But yeah, I mean, if you want to look up financial frictions or credit worthiness as key search points, you could probably find those two or that statement rather in one of the two chapters that we're covering here on the assignment. Let's move to number 8. When financial institutions cut back on their lending to borrower spenders, this is referred to as leverage decline. No, it's another one that I took right out of the text, and I threw leverage decline in there because I thought it sounded like a possibility. But no, a couple of you did miss that. Although from who I see here is in the meeting, I don't think any of the people that are with us today in the meeting missed that one. So I won't beat anybody over the head for missing it. But I think, like I said, for the most part, everybody did very well. So I'm not going to be picking at nits at all here. I thought everybody did great. Anyway, yeah, leverage decline that isn't really related to financial institutions cutting back on their lending. Number 9, historically, periods of high uncertainty have not been associated with U.S. financial crises. Well, that pretty much obviously a false statement, don't you think? I mean, U.S. financial crises are just wrought with uncertainty. So by saying that high uncertainty is not associated with financial crises, that's definitely a false statement. So that one is false. And number 10, although the Great Depression started in the U.S., it was not just a U.S. phenomenon, which is true. The U.S. has such a global impact on the global economy that, the Depression had great impact on countries, not only here in North America, like Canada and Mexico, but across the pond in Europe and even in the Far East. There were some ramifications of the Depression. So definitely a true statement. Okay, everybody, let's get into the short answers. I'm going to call on a few of you to tell us what you thought. Number 11, briefly describe what is meant by the term used by various economists, which is referred to as financial friction. Let me take a look at who's with us. Nina, I'm calling on you today first. On number 11, I liked your response. Can you tell us why you wrote what you did, or maybe share what you wrote and why you did, if you got your homework in front of you?
Yeah, I have it right here.
Great.
So maybe I'm just going to read it out first. I wrote financial frictions occur when funds cannot get efficiently transferred from saver to the firm or household because there's less information available to one party compared to another. And well, I just Googled and read various websites and then kind of combined the information I got there to get that answer. So yeah.
Good approach. No, I liked your answer. I thought it made a lot of sense. Definitely was a good idea to Google, and I liked your answer. So does that make sense to everybody? Everybody who did get this question correct, which I think was just about everybody, would tend to agree with Nina's answer and what you just said. Everybody good? Okay, let's move to number 12, where I'm asking you to talk about the lemons problem, which I thought might be a interesting thing for you all to research a little bit. Fabian, I liked your answer here. You gave a pretty good one. You not only talked about the used car lemons reference, but you expanded that into financial implications. So, can you share what you were thinking about with this answer and why you put it down?
Sure. So I wrote that the lemons problem is a problem that describes a particular aspect of the way the adverse selection problem interferes with the efficient functioning of a market.
Right.
And the original lemons problem, the lemons in that problem refer to the used cars that are sold at a value equal to or above the car price because the specific used car is of below average quality. But because of asymmetric information, the buyer does not know whether the car is a lemon or not. And so the seller is very happy to sell the lemon at the market price, which is assigned to the car based on the average quality of the used cars in the market or above the market price. But if the car is a peach, so the opposite of a lemon, that means a good car, the seller is unlikely to sell because the seller knows the value of the car. And so therefore, as a result of the lemons problem, only very few good cars will enter the market for used cars, which means that the average car quality in the used cars market will remain at a low level, and very few people want to buy cars with low quality level. And therefore, the used cars market is an inefficient market. And if we transfer that to the stocks and bonds market, an investor, or if an investor cannot distinguish between a security with high expected returns and low risk, which would be a peach, and a security with low expected returns and higher risk, which would be a lemon, then the willingness to pay for the security by an investor is reflecting the average quality of securities issued. And this willingness to pay is then set at a point between the value of the bad securities and the good securities. But if the issuers of good securities who know that they will issue a good security are not willing to sell to such an investor because this would undervalue their security. Therefore, the only securities the investor can then purchase are the lemon securities because of the investor's willingness to pay being higher than the valuation of the bad securities. And any smart investor doesn't want to purchase the bad securities, and he will therefore not purchase those securities. And this again creates an inefficient market in which few securities are and can be sold to raise capital. And overall, the lemons problem can be solved by creating an environment in which information can freely flow and is freely accessible. So in the example of the used car market, means that the buyer and the seller both have an equal amount and quality of the information regarding the used car in question. And therefore the buyer is willing to purchase the car at a full value, or at least in theory, and the seller is willing to sell the car at full value. And if we transfer that again to the stocks and bonds market, the purchaser of a security can distinguish between a good and a bad security, and they are willing to pay the full value of the security, or at least in theory. And the security issuer will then sell the securities in the market at full value.
Right. Yeah, good. I thought you really summed that up very well, and I like the way you didn't just leave the lemon idea on the used car lot, right? You expanded it to where, our course is really taking us into the financial aspects and in this case, the stocks and bonds market. But well done. Very good. Thank you. Okay, number 13, briefly discuss how transaction costs can influence financial structure. Dylan, I thought you did a pretty good answer on this one. Can you talk a little bit about what you wrote
Yeah.
and why?
Of course. Let's see. Okay, so I said transaction costs can influence financial structure in many ways. When transaction costs are low, more transactions will take place, leading to a more complex transaction market. And when transaction costs are high, less transactions take place, making the transaction market less complex.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's no more complicated than that. I mean, you know, if you got a situation where transaction costs are low, you're going to have a lot more activity, and that would lend, you know, itself to probably a more efficient structure of, you know, an entire financial structure. But if transaction costs are high, you're potentially going to be limited, or investors are going to be limited in the number of transactions that they can um, affordably conduct. And as a result, they might not cover everything they want to, or be able to invest in all the securities that they may want to fully diversify their portfolios or whatever it is they're doing. So I think that's a good answer. And transaction costs can have a significant impact on financial structure. So good. Thank you, Dylan. Okay. Number 14. Let's get to that if I can get to it here. Okay. Briefly describe how financial intermediation and the encouragement of information might impact the adverse selection problem that we referred to just a little bit earlier, the adverse selection problem in financial markets. So how can intermediation or encouragement of information benefit that? Okay. Let's take a quick look here. Brazil, I thought you had a good answer here. Can you share what you wrote or why you responded the way you did to this question?
Yes, I can read it. For 14, I did financial intermediation and the encouragement of information can have a positive impact on the adverse selection problem in financial markets. Financial intermediaries, such as banks and investment firms, play a crucial role in bridging the gap between savers and borrowers. They act as intermediaries by pulling funds from savers and channeling them towards borrowers who need capital to finance their investments or operations. In doing so, financial intermediaries can help to mitigate adverse selection by screening potential borrowers and selecting only those with lower risk of default. Access to accurate and reliable information is essential for investors to make informed decisions and assess the risk of potential investments. Financial regulators and policymakers can help to encourage the flow of information by requiring companies to disclose relevant financial information to the public and by promoting transparency in financial transactions.
Yeah, I thought you answered that really well. I like that answer. Just talking about the implications of, you know, strong financial intermediation and how intermediaries can help bridge that, you know, knowledge goal, right? They assist borrowers and investors in kind of fighting through the adverse selection problems of insufficient or sometimes even erroneous information that exists out there in financial markets. So very good. Okay, so yeah, that is exactly how financial intermediation and the encouragement of information, or at least informational flow, can help to impact adverse selection. And then number 15, briefly discuss some of the tools and how they may be used to help solve the adverse selection problems that we just referred to in number 14. Jewel, I thought you had a real good answer to this one. Can you share what you wrote?
Yeah, sure. I wrote tools to solve adverse selection problems include private production and sale of information, government regulation to increase information, financial intermediation, and collateral and net worth. Private production and sale of information is a way to eliminate the adverse selection problem, especially the asymmetric information inherited by it. Private companies produce and then sell information that helps saver lenders to distinguish bad firms from good ones. Examples for companies in the US are Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Value Line. This approach does not completely solve the adverse selection problem due to the free rider problem. Collateral and net worth can help to solve the problem that arises with adverse selection problems, as only if the lender suffers a loss when the borrower is unable to make loan payments and defaults, the functioning of financial markets is impaired. Collateral is usually property promised to the lender. It reduces the risk of adverse selection as it reduces the lender's losses in the event of a borrower's default. Net worth can perform a similar role to that of collateral. If a firm has a high net worth, the lender can take title to the firm's net worth when firms default on debt payments and sell it off and use proceeds to lower losses.
Yeah, I thought that was very good. Thank you, Jewel. Yeah, I'm glad that you took a moment to mention and also answered with the information on the bond rating agencies, Moody's and Standard & Poor's. They are important institutions out there that are well known for their bond ratings and their publications of bond stability and lead a lot of investors to make the choices in bond investments that they end up making. So yeah, definitely one of the many tools that are used, as well as the institutions and so forth, and government publications that you referred to as well, that can help at least mitigate some of the adverse selection problems that exist out there. So great. Thank you, everybody, for your answers there. Let's just continue on with the last few multiple choice questions. Number 16, the free rider problem prevents what? A lot of you put none of the above for whatever reason, but B is the answer. The private market from producing enough information to eliminate asymmetric information that leads to adverse selection. So the free rider problem is designed to prevent that that occurrence. Okay, so B is the right answer. I tried to throw in a couple other answers that look like they might be possibilities, but at the end of the day, I think if you look up the term free rider problem in your search mode within the text, you'll come right to that statement. Okay.
Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
question regarding this. So the free rider problem is basically people using information that is usually locked behind a paywall, right? So they're basically using information other people are buying.
Yeah, they are
using money for, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't understand why the answer is B, because I was also considering B, but then I thought like, okay, there is enough information. Like the enough was kind of setting me off in terms of that. In my personal opinion, I think that the private market is rather lacking resources to produce enough information to eliminate this asymmetric information. Or the private market is not producing enough information that they will sell so that they can use it to their own advantage. And that's why I think that it's none of the above. And the free rider problem kind of is none of the above.
Yeah, statement came right out of the text, as I recall. let me, I'll do another little investigation for you on this and I'll give you my ruling, okay?
Yeah,
Several of you did miss it. Let me just take a quick look here. Yeah, 16 wrong, 16 on this list, 16 probably appears more than any other, at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the, so a third of the class missed that problem. So I think it's well worth to, for me to investigate on it. And if I do, if I see the wording in the text isn't really clear, or if I relook at the problem and it's misleading in any way, I'll throw it out and give everybody the credit for the answer. Like I said, some of you did get it correct. So I don't feel like I was terribly misleading with that question, but a third of the class did miss it. So let me look into it and I'll get back to you with a little announcement on my ruling, my official ruling. Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, you bet, Fabian. No problem. I really don't mind looking into these questions at all for anybody. At all. I mean, I want everybody to feel comfortable with the scores they're receiving and the information that they're getting out of the class at the end of the day is the most important thing of all. Okay, let's move to 17. Tools to reduce the moral hazard problem in debt contracts do not include which of the following? Well, collateral and net worth, financial intermediaries, enforcement of restrictive covenants, all those you can look at and say, hey, those are in fact tools that are used to reduce moral hazard problems. But Sarbanes-Oxley legislation is not. Sarbanes-Oxley legislation, I was a Sarbanes-Oxley auditor for several years when that act first came out in law. And it's really a question of ensuring the integrity of company financial statements and publicly traded companies, especially, and internal controls within those companies. So Sarbanes-Oxley doesn't really have to do with the moral hazard problem as it does with financial reporting of information to the public. So C is the one that's the outlier there. Everybody good with that? Well, only a very few of you missed that one, so I don't feel like it was a difficult question. Okay, 18. Asymmetric information results in two problems. And what are those? Well, delayed selection and equity loss. No. Adverse rejection and ethical concerns. No. Adverse selection and moral hazard. Hey, there's a winner. Communication hazard. What? I made up that term, I think. And loss of share value. So I came up with a couple of bogus answers just to throw in there. But that statement comes right out of the text too, I'm sure. Asymmetric information results in adverse selection and moral hazard. Everybody good? Cool. Okay. The textbook states, so I'm literally referring to the textbook here that there's a statement in here that talks about financial friction and that it may arise when what happens. And it essentially happens when institutions stop collecting information and making loans, right? It's a statement again right out of the text, and I think just about everybody got this. Oh, with a couple of exceptions. Okay, well, not everybody got that. Now, I'm a bit surprised because I know that's right out of the text. Does anybody have any questions on that? I mean, I didn't write down incorrect answers. I just wrote down the questions for each individual that they did not get correct. So on number 19, Is there anyone who doesn't understand why it's the institutions stop collecting information and making loans that gives rise to financial friction? So everybody okay with that now? Like I said, I know that a few of you did miss it. And I just wanted you to be, comfortable with that answer. Okay. And then last and but not least is in economies with moderate inflation, what happens? And say many debt contracts with fixed interest rates are of fairly long maturity. That also refers to the concept of the yield curve, where you have a usually gradually sloping line with interest rate on the y-axis, term on the x. So as you move out into term, you're going to get generally higher and higher interest rates and required returns, which would make sense to just about anybody, hopefully, in that as you hold investments for longer periods of time, you will naturally experience a potential for more risk. So the more risk you have, because you're holding on to an investment for a longer period of time, the economy might tank, interest rates might go through the roof, your bond investments might, drop in value. The longer you hold something, the more you have to be compensated for that potential risk that goes along with that time frame. So in economies with moderate inflation, that's also going to be the case. Which, most of the time we're in an economy with, little or moderate inflation. It's rare when we have these terrible inflationary times like we did back in the 70s and things like that. So in most instances, I'd have to say that, these are pretty much normal economies where there's little or moderate inflation, and the debt contracts with any fixed interest rates are going to have longer maturities. Make sense? Let me just take a quick look. Looks like just about everybody got that right, so I probably was beating a dead horse there. So that's our assignment for the day. Let me look into what I didn't write that down. I was too busy talking. Fabian, what question was that I was going to investigate? The free rider?
Yeah, the number 16.
Yeah. Okay, I'll investigate problem 16 and give you my official thoughts on what I want to do with that. I'll probably throw it out. I mean, I want you all to do well, obviously. And like I said, almost a third of the class missed that one. So, but yeah, let me follow up on that. But I can't really think of much else. At the moment, we've got our assignment here in week 7 will be due Sunday. We can talk about any questions you might have on any of those topics or on the chapter information that you're to read this week and on Wednesday in our meeting. But if there's no other questions, I'll just turn everybody loose. Everybody pretty good? Okay, everybody. Well, I'm gonna officially end the meeting. Thanks so much for joining me, and thanks to you who shared your thoughts on the short answer questions. And I'll see everybody on Wednesday afternoon.
See you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you Wednesday.
Thanks, everybody. Great
Thank you.
job. Bye-bye.